Welcome to Judicial Dollars and Cents, brought to you by Anders Virtual CFO Services team from all across the United States. I'm John Scott, and in each episode, we'll shine a light on the financial side of the legal world, turning law firm numbers into impact-driven stories. From taxes and profitability to practice growth and leadership, we sit down with law firm innovators who are shaping the future of the profession. Let's dive in, right here on Judicial Dollars and Cents. Welcome back to Judicial Dollars and Cents, where the business of law meets the practice of law. I'm John Scott with Anders Virtual CFO Services for law firms, and each week we sit down with successful attorneys, legal innovators, and business leaders to explore what it really takes to build a thriving law firm. We go beyond the courtroom to discuss leadership, profitability, operations, technology, AI, and the strategies that help firms grow, scale, and create lasting value. Whether you're a managing partner, an emerging firm leader, or someone passionate about the future of the legal profession, our goal is to provide practical insights that you can put to work immediately. Today, we are pleased to welcome Wendy Hernandez, who is the founder and managing attorney of Hernandez Family Law in Phoenix. Wendy has 30 years of legal experience, including 27 years devoted exclusively to family law. She founded her firm in 1999 and has built a team that handles everything from divorce and custody to complex property division, business valuations, military divorce, and high conflict family matters. But Wendy has done something else I think law firm owners will find fascinating. She created Command the Courtroom, which is an educational platform that has grown to more than 46,000 YouTube subscribers and 5 million views by teaching people how to better understand and prepare for family court. And now she's taking that expertise another step forward with her book, Legally Ending Love, a courtroom savvy guide to divorce and beyond. Wendy, welcome to the show.
Gosh, thank you so much, John. I'm really happy to be here.
I'm so glad you're here because I think you have a unique origin story, and I'd like to hear that story from small town to law firm founder, but a lot of stuff in between.
Oh, yeah. So, well, I grew up in a small copper mining town in central Arizona. It was called Baghdad, Arizona. My dad was a miner. My grandparents were miners. All my aunts and uncles were copper miners. And I worked in the mines during the summers, during college. And, it was a really great upbringing, small town. Everybody knew everybody's business, and you couldn't get away with anything. But one thing I did know from the hard work that I saw my dad do in the mines and that I did, I literally worked in the sewer plant shoveling waste one summer. I knew that I had to do something different with my life. And my parents encouraged all of us 3 kids to, go to college and advance our education. So after Baghdad, I went to Arizona State University. Quite honestly, I didn't know that I had options outside of Arizona. Like none of my relatives had gone to college. So going to ASU was a big deal. And ASU is a big deal. Like I loved ASU. But after, going to ASU, I realized, wow, there's other schools outside of Arizona. And I decided to throw my hat in the ring and apply to Notre Dame Law School. I always liked the fighting Irish, and I got in. So went to law school. That was a dream of mine ever since I was 12 years old. And everything I did was towards that dream. I studied hard. I learned to write. I learned to talk well. I was a communication major, and I found myself in South Bend, Indiana for 3 years. And here I am 27 years later in Phoenix, back home, and managing a law firm.
What an amazing story in that hard work that you did in the copper mine and in the sewage plant.
Yeah.
Taught you what you didn't want to do, right? So you had to do something different.
100%. And I think the biggest thing it did for me, though, was I worked hard, and I grew up around hardworking people. So it made me not afraid of hard work, right? Which is the biggest thing we control in success, is like our ability to put in the time and give the attention and the intention to whatever it is we're doing.
I got thrown out of our interview process at my firm. We have a very large firm, 500 people all across the United States. But when we were much smaller, I used to get to go on campus and do interviews. And I always wanted to find out what mom and dad did for that very reason. Because if mom and dad Well, I won't go into the specifics, but I got thrown out because if mom and dad were in the professional field, then these students got what we did. If mom and dad had just a job that wasn't necessarily a hardworking job, that didn't work out either. But if they were from a farm community or some place where you have to be a jack of all trades and work never stops,
Yep.
that was an ideal fit for me.
Oh, yep. I can understand why. And it's an ideal fit for me too. And I'm looking for people to come and work with me on my team.
So it must have been quite the culture shock going from a town of 2,000 people to ASU, which is huge.
ASU was huge. And, my first year I lived in this dormitory called Manzanita, and there were 1,000 students in Manzanita Hall, which was half the size of my town. And ASU at that time was 50,000 students. It was huge. But the good thing about it was when I was there, ASU was the #1 party school in America, according to Playboy.
I think it's still way up there.
I was there during the golden years.
So what made you, after Notre Dame Law School, start a family law firm?
Well, so after law school, I came back home and I failed my first bar exam, which was not fun and devastating to my ego and self-esteem. But there was, it was one of the best lessons and one of the best gifts I ever received in my life, because during that time I was studying to take the next law exam. I worked in a law firm with some of the best lawyers in Phoenix. It was a high-end personal injury law firm, and they did catastrophic injuries. And at that time, we took dictation on tape. So I'd have the little headset and they'd give me tapes and I'd type. And I learned so much about what it meant to be a good lawyer, an ethical lawyer, a hardworking lawyer, and a lawyer who was committed to excellence. And I learned the back end, of what a law firm's working looks like, conform copies, getting to the courthouse, filing things. So I passed the bar exam after a year at this law firm, went to work as a prosecutor for Maricopa County, and I learned to litigate then in the courtrooms. They just throw you in. And I did a lot of cases. But after 3 years, I couldn't support myself. My parents were still helping me. I was renting a room from somebody. I had big student loans. So I thought, I need to get out of here. Like, I didn't go to law school to rent a room and have my parents help me. And I don't know how or why, but I just had this intuition that I needed to open my own practice and that I could do it. Maybe I was young and dumb. I didn't think much about it, but I did it. And it was scary. And so what I did when I opened my practice was I did criminal defense, which was the flip side of prosecution, right?
Right.
So more trial work. And what I loved about the criminal defense work was I really got to talk to real people. As a prosecutor, I didn't do that. I talked to cops and investigators, and I like them. My brother's a lieutenant. But I talked to the people and I learned their stories. I developed more compassion for them. And I just love talking to the people I represented. And they range from people who were charged with possession of marijuana to charged with first-degree murder. And over time, John, a lot of my criminal clients needed help, or they had family or friends who needed help with family law, divorces, child custody, child support. And they'd ask me, and I was afraid. Like, I didn't want to do it because I didn't know how. Nobody taught me how. But after a period of time, I thought, well, I can try it. And in fact, I think a judge told me, you can do this. Just look at the self-help forms. Like, you can do it. So that's what I did. I looked at the pro-per self-help forms and I learned to do family law. And I figured out that I'm actually better suited to family law than I was to do criminal law. And that's how I found myself here. Eventually, there was a transition period. But at some point I just stopped taking criminal cases and now I do exclusively family law.
That's a great story. And I think you've built this firm that doesn't depend on you. So I think that's the part of the story a lot of law firm owners need to hear. You reached the point where the Hernandez family law firm can operate you without you being involved in every client. How did you get there?
Well, and like every time you reach a new iteration or you're at the cusp, like it's hard and it's scary. And I remember the point, like at one point it was just me. And I got a business coach 20 years ago, back before it was that thing to do. And really it was him, he pushed me to hire my first employee. And we went through the Socratic questioning of why it made sense. And, at that time I had a contract, I was getting paid to do indigent defense work for the city of Phoenix. And you only get paid a few $100 a case, but it's a guaranteed paycheck every month, but it's just not worth it. And he really forced my hand. He's like, you need to quit doing that contract, and you need to hire somebody. So really it was the accountability with Stephen. Like, I credit him with that. And, once I hired the first employee, like, that was the most difficult one. It was probably the least expensive employee I hired too. And as time went on, I just continued to add. When I got to a point where it's like, okay, this is like, we're ready. It's a house of cards. I'm ready to crumble. It's time to add. And so I would add. And, but what I'm realizing now is that the time to add is before you get to the point where it's about to crumble, right? You always should have good hires in your pipeline, attorneys I want to hire in my pipeline, or paralegals or legal assistants. And, each one's a little scary. But if you're going to make more than you're paying them, and if you can do more work and serve more clients at a high level, then it's totally worth it. So that's what you have to get your head around.
2 comments on what you said, and I think that's a great lesson for attorneys that are building a firm, is leverage is important, and leverage is scary and hard because you have to train and then trust that those people will do things the way you want them to do.
Yeah.
But you're so right. I mean, in the accounting profession, we have leverage of 9 or 10 to 1. That doesn't exist in the legal world. But if you accept leverage and you can train and trust and follow, have people follow a system that you built, then you will be able to grow and scale. And the other thing I commend you on is not just recognizing that you needed a coach way back when, but being coachable and listening.
Yeah. Thank you for that. And you know what, John, I still have a coach to this day. And I think that I'm going to have a coach until the day I die, even if I stop working, because my coach is always pushing me. He's paid to push, and he's always helping me become the next better version of myself, which, goes on forever. So I'm a big proponent of coaching. It's so worth it.
Well, right. And you always have to be in this continuous improvement mode, and open to new ideas, open to AI within reason and responsible uses of it. But if you're unwilling to grow yourself, then you're never going to grow your firm as well. Let's talk about something lawyers don't always like talking about, but pricing. You advocate pricing based on value, which I absolutely love. How did your thoughts around pricing evolve over time?
Well, I think it gets easier the more experience you have, and the more you learn, the more wisdom you have, the more experience you have. Like, it's easy to tell me, or for me to tell somebody who's just starting in their career, like, you need to charge more. If they don't feel the confidence, like, it's not going to come through. If their belief in themselves isn't translating to the potential client, the client won't buy. But over time, I've realized that just what I do is so important, and that, people are faced with a really, a huge decision or a huge time of transition in their lives, and they will pay for good legal advice. So I raise my prices. I'm trying to do it like once a year, commensurate with, I think, the value that I bring to the table. And I'm not pricing based on what I think is going on in my market, because I think that limits me. I have no idea what other attorneys charge or what other attorneys charge with my experience, but I know what I think I'm worth, and people retain me. Not everybody retains me. Not everybody can afford me, and that's okay. Like, there are people that can help them, but I attract clients that I want to work with, that I feel good about working with, that are a team player with me, that don't think that I'm their servant. Like, we work together. And I think that is the value of charging based on the value you bring to the table. So, but you have to kind of live into it and get some experience, I think, and time under your belt, and have made some mistakes. And then you can walk into those consults and say, yeah, I charge $6.75 an hour, and I'm worth every penny of it. That's the way it is.
I absolutely love that thought process, because so many professionals get into trouble by taking any and all client work, and they become slaves to the work. I have a another CPA owner friend of mine who has a smaller firm, and I keep telling him, raise your prices, raise them every year. And his response is, I'll lose some clients. And I said, that's a good thing, because you can focus on the better clients, your A clients. You can have
Yes.
better quality of life, make the same amount of money or more. And then
Yes.
you'll get more selective about who you accept as a client going forward.
Oh, 100%. I mean, it just feels like such a relief to only have to bill a couple hours a day or a few hours a day as opposed to like 7 or whatever, to make a certain amount of money. And, now that I'm managing the firm, I'm doing even less of billing and I have less client work because I'm focusing more on managing a team. But, you really have to scramble when you're not charging a lot of money, especially what you're worth.
Right. And you become a slave to the business.
Yeah.
Let's talk about command the courtroom. You saw people walking into family court completely unprepared and decided to start educating them. Did you have any idea when you started that it would generate millions of views?
I had no idea, and it was just like really kind of a heart passion project because I'd walk into the courtroom and I'd be with my clients and I'd see a scared person on the other side of the room who completely froze up when the judge sat on the bench and maybe lost property or had to pay child support or a lot of it when they shouldn't have had to, or lost their kids. And I thought, like, this really isn't fair. Like, I know I'm representing this person here, but this is not a fair result. And I'm not doing this work for unfair results or a result that's not in the best interest of a family or children. So I thought I went on this mission. I'm like, I'm going to educate people if they can't afford an attorney or want one. And so I just started putting up these horrible, shaky little videos on YouTube. And I was scared. Like, it took me forever to record just like 1 2-minute video. But I did it and kept doing it. And at some point, my brother, who was following me, said, hey, like, sis, did you know you had 5,000 followers? I mean, and it wasn't very long. I'm like, what? I had no idea. And so it's kind of just snowballed. And, the key is consistency. I love helping people. I love hearing from people. Like, I've heard so many times somebody saying, I was up last night, like, just crying, thinking about giving up. And then I got on YouTube and I found you. And it's like, just watching this video gave me the strength to keep going. And that's why I do this. And so, and it's motivation for me to keep doing it because it's not always easy to record a video. Life gets in the way, stuff gets in the way, but I have to keep doing it because it's helping people and bettering the world.
Well, and I have to think in this age of moving away from SEO content to chat and chat GPT content, people go to chat and say, what family law professional should I hire? All that content that you have out there has to push you up into the search.
It definitely does. And, that's not a benefit that I was thinking about when I started creating it, but it's definitely something that has played out. So many people walk into my office and they're like, I've seen all your videos and I'm ready to hire you. Like, just what do we need to do? Because the trust is built. So it's not just generating, calls locally, but it's helping establish the trust that people need, before they pay you money, right? Before they trust you with their lives.
Well, and it documents your expertise in family law.
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
Let's talk about the book, Legally Ending Love.
Yeah.
What's the larger objective of the book?
Well, so I just got my proofs yesterday, so I'm going to proudly show it up. And there's a gray strip here because it's the author's copy.
Right.
But I started writing this book like 7 years ago. I had a dream and it came to me in a dream and I woke up in the middle of the night and just scribbled stuff down. And then I started writing and then life got in the way and I stopped. And I came across what I had written a couple of years ago and I thought, man, this is good. I need to finish it. And so it's really, John, it's a continuation of the work I do on YouTube. Like, there's like 300 videos on YouTube and people could piece stuff together by binge watching the videos. But I thought I want to put it all in one place. I want to make it a reference manual that is entertaining. There's a lot of stories that's down to earth. So people can just buy the manual if they don't want to watch YouTube or if they want to supplement YouTube. And so that's why I wrote the book and it's coming out. Actually, I just moved the publication date to October 13th to give ourselves a little more space. But that's the reason I wrote it.
Is it available on Amazon?
It's going to be available on Amazon, yes.
Okay.
And people can go to legallyendinglove.com and sign up so they can get notified when the Amazon link is live. It is not live yet, but it will be soon.
Well, once it goes live, I wrote a book, Judicial Dollars and Cents. And so
Yeah.
every once in a while, I see a nice little royalty that comes into my bank account. So
Yeah.
you can't retire on it, but it is nice to see that people are buying and reading the books.
Yeah. I hope people do, read it and, they pass it on to people they love and, we'll see what happens with it. But I know I needed to put it out in the world and now it is. And we'll see what's next.
Well, I'm glad you did, because people digest information differently. Some people want to watch the videos. Some people want to have a book that they can, read 30 minutes at a time or flip through a specific subject. So
Yeah.
it's a good outlet. So every guest gets an AI question.
Yeah.
And I want to know how, if at all, you all are using AI and what is a good use case for it in your firm.
Oh my gosh, I love AI so much. I use AI every day for much of my day, and we are using it in my law firm. And I use it to help. I use it for so many things. When I'm facing like a difficult problem, it could be with the decision in my business. I brainstorm with AI. And so I use Claude, and I have uploaded to Claude. I have projects in Claude. And for every project, I upload whatever the context is, and I may get on Claude and dictate about my business, about my mission, about my values, about my team. And then I upload it to the project context. So then whenever I go to Claude for a decision, it understands who I am, what I stand for, and what I need. So I use it in the management of the business, but I've also created skills within Claude, like, based on like motions or pretrial statements that have the same format. And I've set it up so the format is saved as a skill, and I just go in and dictate, or it queries me, like, what do you want to tell me about this case or the issue? And I query, and then it spits out like a great first draft that I can then polish. My legal assistants are using it a lot to automate their processes. Like, they generate reports for me every week of the billable hours in the firm, of the people who are out of money, retainers, how much we collected in a certain month. So they have automated that, and I get those reports every week. So, and we're expanding it. I just had a busy summer, so I didn't spend as much time on AI as I wanted, but that's my goal between now and the end of the year, is to really integrate it even more into my law firm, because I think it can make us so much more efficient.
I think it's great that you're embracing AI, and it sounds like you have some great use cases. And I think you have the right focus. Let's take some of the mundane things that aren't really the art of law, so that you can then have the time, or your attorneys can then have the time, to really focus on, thinking and critically working towards the client's benefit.
Correct.
Because there's so many things that people like to do, especially in the accounting world. We have young accountants, and even some older ones, that still want to tick and tie, when in reality, I need them critically thinking about the client situation, which it sounds like you're doing.
Yeah, that's what I love about it. It is taking like the mundane things and can do it in seconds. So then I can do stuff that my clients need my human judgment for, right? And I can spend the time with them in person, and I'm not stressed out about it. Oh, I got to analyze whatever.
Yeah, you can do the higher level, higher value things, which allows you to push those hourly rates.
Correct. That's right. Exactly.
So if you were going to start your firm over today, you were the younger you, knowing everything that you know and everything that happened along the way, what would you do different from the start?
I think the biggest thing that I've had to learn over time is just invest in yourself. Coming from a small town and a blue collar town and a family of immigrants, like, I think the mindset was much of scarcity. And I adore my parents and all of my relatives, but it was just a different mindset. And so I think that was one of the biggest blocks I had, was like, oh my gosh, like, what this business coach wants to charge me, whatever it was, $5,000 a month, like, that's too much money, but it's so worth it. So the first thing is, like, invest in yourself, invest in your learning, invest in your professional development, go to conferences, go to seminars, go to CLEs out of state, meet new people, get new ideas. It's so difficult to build and expand your mind when you're doing it like in a silo and it's just you and there's nobody to talk to. We have resources here, like now, you can connect with somebody across the world on the computer. So like spend the money, spend the time, and think bigger. I think that's the piece of advice I'd give.
I love it. I love it. And you did bring us back to that small town, Baghdad, Arizona. So
Yeah.
is the mine still open?
Yes, the mine is still open. And in fact, I've heard that they are thinking of digging into the town site now to, just keep getting that ore. Like last I heard, the prices of copper are pretty high. It's just like silver. I'm a metalsmith,
Oh, yeah.
which is my hobby. So, but copper, when I was growing up, copper was, there was a couple layoffs because it just wasn't doing well. I guess it's doing really well.
I think it is.
Yeah.
So I know before the show, we talked about your latest trip and you went to Japan. Had you been there before?
I'd never been to Japan. I never dreamed that I could go to Japan.
So why did we pick Japan, and tell me your wildest experience in Japan?
Well, why Japan? You know what? I just felt called to Japan for the last couple of years. And I don't know why. It was just like my heart was pulling me. It's like we've been to Europe and we've been to a lot of cool places, but I want to go to Asia. So I started like mentioning it to my husband, and my husband was in the military. He's been all over the world, but my daughter, who's very into anime, was like, let's go to Japan. So we went, and I think the most beautiful experience that we had was we took a day trip out of Tokyo to a small town called Nikko. And it was a mountain town. It was beautiful. It was probably 10 or 15 degrees cooler than Tokyo, which was so hot and humid in the month of July. And greenery, like these 400-year-old cedar trees everywhere. And you could see the mist in the clouds just moving. It was cool. It was slow. And we did a hike up to a shrine and a temple. And we had ice cream. And it was just like a slow day, being in nature, just being present with my husband and daughter. Like it was just peaceful. And I love that. Like I love Tokyo too. It's so fast paced. I mean, it's kind of like a big New York City, just people everywhere. Being in Nikko, I slowed down and it was incredible.
That sounds incredible. I'm not sure it was on my list of wanting to go there, but I might have to reconsider it. So when I think about food, I can picture and enjoy Mexican food. I can picture and enjoy Spanish food or all different kinds of food, but I just don't envision Japanese food. So what was the food like?
The food was great. And, the first day or second meal, we went to a Kobe beef place, John. And yeah.
Wow.
And I know. I didn't know Kobe beef was so expensive, and we didn't fully understand what the yen to dollars conversion was.
Yeah.
We had an incredible lunch, and, with like the chef doing all the magic tricks and great Kobe. And we got like a bill for 150,000 yen because we were just like living in the moment. That's like $1,000 lunch. And I'm not trying to brag, but what I'm saying is when you go to Japan, figure out the currency conversion. But the meal was incredible, and like just being in the moment and having that experience and having a really good steak that I think less than 3% of people in the world will ever have was a once in a lifetime. So the Kobe beef is great. The ramen was great. They have like my daughter was not much into Japanese, so they had Shake Shack and whatever. So once in a while we'd have to say like, all right, we'll get you a burger from Shake Shack.
You realize you could do this back home, right?
I know. She's 15. I don't know what to say.
Hey, Wendy, before we wrap up, what's the best way for folks to get a hold of you, learn more about Hernandez family law, follow Command the Courtroom, and find your new book?
Oh, thank you so much for asking those questions. So go just type in the search bar on YouTube, Command the Courtroom, and hit subscribe, sign up for my videos, which are dropping more frequently now. If you want the book, again, go to legallyendinglove.com and just put your name on the list. My law firm website is hernandezfirm.com, and there's like a little form people can fill out that goes directly to the law firm. And that's how they can reach me.
That's fantastic. Wendy, thank you so much for joining us today. And thank you all for listening to Judicial Dollars and Cents, where the business of law meets the practice of law. If you enjoyed today's episode, please like, follow, and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. Our mission is simple: to help law firm owners build stronger businesses, deliver exceptional client experiences, and create firms that last for generations. I'm John Scott with Anders Virtual CFO Services for Law Firms, and we'll see you next time. Thanks for joining us on Judicial Dollars and Cents, presented by Anders Virtual CFO Services. If you found value in today's conversation, be sure to follow or subscribe wherever you get your podcast. To learn more about how Anders helps law firms strengthen their financial foundations and drive growth, visit anderscpa.com. Until next time, keep making smart decisions that make perfect sense.